Hello there everyone, my name is David Lutchford and today I'm going to be teaching you the 8th lesson of my Ancient Greek course, and today it's on verbs in or, the present indicative active. And now I don't expect any of this to mean anything to you yet, but I'm going to begin by saying that there are 3 categories of verbs in Ancient Greek. Firstly, there are verbs ending in or, that is, omega. Secondly, there are verbs ending in me, that is, mu iota. And thirdly, there are irregular verbs. There are many more verbs in or than there are irregular verbs or verbs ending in me in Ancient Greek, and so we're starting with verbs in or. And we're starting with them in the particular form, the present indicative active. And now in the future I shall explain what each of these terms means exactly. However, for today's lesson it will suffice to say that the present indicative active is used when the subject of the sentence is doing the action of the verb rather than having it done to them in the present tense. So for instance, the present indicative active first person singular of the verb to go in English would be either I go or I am going. Ancient Greek would use just one word to mean both of these things, I go and I am going. And so if you were to come across that verb in Ancient Greek, you would have to choose to translate it as either I go or I am going, depending on the context. You would translate it as whichever of those sounds best, given the context. Okay, let's actually start with that verb meaning I go or I am going. There are many verbs meaning to go in Ancient Greek, but we're going to start with this one. We're going to start with binor. This is spelled beta, alpha, iota, nu, and then omega. So this is binor, and it means I go or I am going. And because I am the one doing it, we call this the first person singular form of binor. First person singular just means that I am the one doing the action. And we can indicate that it's first person singular by writing a 1 and an S next to it for first person singular. But how do we know that this verb means I go or I am going? Well, every verb in or is composed of a stem plus a person ending. So in the case of binor, the stem is bine, and the stem is what lets you know the meaning of the verb. So the bine part lets us know that it's the verb to go. And then the person ending in this case is or, which is the first person singular present indicative active person ending for verbs in or. The or part lets us know that I am doing the action. So the stem, the bine part, tells us it is the verb to go, and the or part, the person ending, tells us that I am doing that action. So together it means I go or I am going. So I'm just going to write the translation next to it. So binor means I go or I am going. Remember, Ancient Greek uses just one verb for both of these, and you need to translate it as one of them depending on which sounds best given the context. So that's the first person singular of binor. But how do we form the second person singular of binor? That is to say, how do we say you singular go or you singular are going? Well, as I said, it is the ending that indicates who is doing the action. So, for the second person singular, which we can write as 2s, we need to keep the stem the same, because the stem tells us that it's the verb to go, but we need to change the ending. So, to make it you singular are going, we need to use the ending ace, that is epsilon, iota, sigma. So the second person singular form is binace, and binace therefore means you singular go or you singular are going. So you would use binace, for example, if you were saying to somebody, are you going to the agora? The are you going part of that question would be binace. Just one word in Ancient Greek. So, as a reminder, you've got the stem bine, which is the to go part, and then you've got the ending ace, which is the part that makes it you singular rather than I, for example. But now we need to ask, how will we form the third person singular, which means he, she, it goes, or he, she, it is going? Well, to do that, we need to use the same stem, bine, but change the ending. And the ending for the third person singular in the present indicative active of verbs in or is a, epsilon, iota. So bine a means he, she, it goes, or he, she, it is going. Once again, made up of the verb stem and a person ending. These are called person endings. And so far we've learned or, ace and a, but there are three more we need to know for the present indicative active of verbs ending in or. So we know how to form the first person singular, the second person singular, and the third person singular. But next we need to know how to form the first person plural, meaning, in this case, we go or we are going. We can write that as 1 PL for first person plural, and the ending used for the first person plural is omen, spelled omicron, mu, epsilon, nu. So we take the stem, bine, and then we add the person ending, omen, bine omen, meaning we go or we are going. Once again, composed of the verb stem, bine, and the person ending, omen. Next, you may have realised we need to know how to form the second person plural. That is, you plural go or are going. So if you were asking a group of people, are you going to the agora? Then you would use this form. The second person plural ending is ete, spelled epsilon, tau, epsilon. So, with the stem, together, that would be binete, like so. Binete then means you plural go, or you plural are going. You have the stem bine and the ending ete. And now we just need to know one more form to be able to fully conjugate the present indicative active of verbs in or. You might not have heard the term conjugate before. To conjugate a verb is to list its forms for each person and number. So first person singular, second person singular, and so on, as we've done here. But we just need one more now for the verb binor, and that is the third person plural. So if we write 3PL, we can write the third person plural form. The third person plural ending is usin. The third person plural form is binusin. So the ending is usin. You can see that I have put the nu in brackets. This is because the nu is only there if the next word begins in a vowel. If the next word begins in a consonant, then it will just be binusi. But if the next word begins in a vowel, then it will be binusin. Okay? Now I say it as binusin because it helps me remember that it can have a nu on the end. Okay? But you should also recognize it as binusi. So the ending is usi or usin, depending on what the next word begins in, and the stem bine is once again there at the start. So binusin means they go or they are going. Okay, so overall then, present indicative active verbs ending in or in the first person singular are composed of a stem and a set of person endings. And the person ending used determines who is doing the action. Now, if you continue learning ancient Greek, you will have to memorize many paradigms like this and many sets of endings, okay? So it will be a very good idea to remember this now. You should be able to say binor, bines, bine, binomem, binete, binusin. And you should know what each of those forms means. This is sort of a paradigm for conjugating all other verbs that end in or in the first person singular of the present indicative active. It is a paradigm for conjugating such verbs in the present indicative active. You could, if you wanted to, just remember the ending. So just remember or, ace, a, omen, ete, usin. Because you will have to stick those onto the end of different stems to form different verbs. Or if you're reading Greek, you will have to mentally take apart a verb stem and its ending. So you need to be able to recognize the endings. When I was learning Greek, I initially wrote these endings in bold to distinguish them from the stems of different verbs. I've seen other people start to learn Greek by putting a dash between the verb stem and its ending. However, if you're confident that you're able to mentally distinguish a verb stem from its ending without having to use any sort of aid, like making it bold or putting a dash in or underlining it like I have here, then please go ahead and learn whichever way is best for you. So this is one paradigm that Greek textbooks use. It's used in Jack's Reading Greek course. For example, that's Jact spelled J-A-C-T. Their Reading Greek course is excellent, it's what I use to learn Greek, and this is the paradigm that they initially teach you for verbs ending in or in the present indicative active. However, there are some other popular paradigms too, and we're going to take a look at them now. Another popular paradigm is the verb pau, spelled pi, alpha, upsilon, omega. This means I stop, as in I stop somebody from doing something. It can mean stop in other senses, but that's one of them. You can see that it's composed of the stem pau and the ending or in the first person singular. And I should say that when you look up a Greek verb in a dictionary, it will be in this form. It will be in the first person singular of the present indicative active. So you can look up pauor in the dictionary and you'll find the meaning stop. So pauor, therefore, means I stop or I am stopping. Now, given what I've told you about binor, you should be able to work out these other forms yourself. So please pause the video and try and note down what you think these other forms will be, and then watch the rest of the video and see if you are correct. So, the other forms are as follows. The second person singular is paues, meaning you singular stop or you singular are stopping. The third person singular form is paue, and this of course means he, she, it stops or he, she, it is stopping. The first person plural form is paumen, meaning we stop or we are stopping. The second person plural form is pauete, meaning you plural stop or you plural are stopping. And then finally, the third person plural form is pausin or pausi if the next word does not begin in a vowel, which means they stop or they are stopping. And as you can see, once again, the verb is composed of a stem and a set of person endings. So the stem is pau and the endings are or, ace, a, omen, ete, usin. And you can see that the stem stays the same throughout the conjugation. The same set of person endings is used in the present indicative active of all verbs which end in or in the present indicative active. Let's do one more popular paradigm very quickly. Another popular paradigm is luor, spelled lambda, long upsilon, and then omega. Luor means I release. And once again, you can see it's composed of a stem, in this case lu, and the person ending or. And to create the other forms, we just need to take the stem lu and stick the other person endings onto that stem. But let me be clear, 流 means I release or I am releasing. I just want to add, I know 流 has multiple meanings, but one of them is release, and that's the one we're going with here. Now see if you can conjugate the rest of the verb on your own by pausing the video and writing down the conjugation yourself with the English meaning to the right. Because I'm going to reveal all of the forms at once. So these are the answers you should have got. First, as I already said, we have 流 meaning I release or I am releasing. That's the first person singular. But then in the second person singular, we have 流 meaning you singular release or you singular are releasing. In the third person singular, we have 流 meaning he, she, it releases or he, she, it is releasing. In the first person plural, we have 流们 meaning we release or we are releasing. In the second person plural, we have 流れて meaning you plural release or you plural are releasing. And finally, in the third person plural, we have 流sin meaning they release or they are releasing. So those are three popular paradigms for memorizing how to conjugate verbs in or in the present indicative active. For the other verbal forms, I shall be using the paradigm power, as I think that is the most popular one in general. So if you're going to memorize one of these three paradigms, I will memorize power, the second one, meaning I stop. So you should memorize power, powers, power, powermen, powete, powusin. But memorizing any of these paradigms will do the trick in that it will get you to remember the person endings that you need to add on to the stem of each verb. Which, to be clear, you once again have here. You have the stem 流 and then the set of person endings. Okay, we're going to practice what we've learned shortly, but before that I'm going to introduce you to 8 new verbs which I would like you to remember the meaning of. You will need to know what these mean to be able to complete the practice we're about to do. And the way I'm going to write all of these verbs is just how they would appear if you look them up in an ancient Greek dictionary. The first verb that I want you to know the meaning of is the verb ballo, which means to throw. We know that this particular form, ballo, would mean I throw or I am throwing. But because this is sort of the standard form of the verb, when you look it up in the dictionary, it will just give you the basic meaning. Even though we know that if we saw this in an ancient Greek text, it would mean I throw or I am throwing. But they just give you the meaning throw when you look up a verb in the dictionary. This is actually where we get the word ballistic from, as in ballistic missiles. So that's one way of remembering that ballo means to throw. The second verb I want you to know is grapho, meaning to write. As we know, this particular form, if we found it in a text, would mean I write or I am writing. But here I'm just giving it to you in the dictionary form with its basic meaning. Or one of its basic meanings, because of course most of these verbs have several meanings. But for now we'll just deal with one. If you transliterated this, you would get graph, and so this and other Greek words with that grap stem give us words like photography and all of the others that are to do with writing or drawing. The third verb I would like you to know is didaskor, which means to teach. This is where we get the word didactic from. The fourth verb I want you to know is echor, which means to have or to hold. I have given you 2 meanings here because these 2 meanings really are absolutely fundamental to this verb. The fifth verb I want you to know is lambanor, which means to take. The sixth verb I want you to know is legor. Legor means to say or to speak. Once again, both of these meanings are fundamental, and that's why I'm giving you 2 here. The seventh verb I want you to know is trachor, meaning to run. Finally, the 8th verb I want you to know is perro, meaning to carry. So please take a moment to pause the video and ensure you've got all of these written down. And if you can, try to remember them now. Try to find ways of remembering their English meaning. But because that is a lot of verbs to remember straight away, I think it's fine if you want to check the list of verbs you've made while we're doing the practice exercises, which we're going to go on to now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 10 different verbs on the board using those verbs you've just learned and the verbs from the paradigms. And I would like you to write them down in your notes and to write their English translations next to them. Okay, your 10 verbs are: firstly, baine; secondly, echomen; thirdly, trechusin; fourthly, leges; fifthly, didaskor; sixthly, lambanete; seventhly, peres; eighthly, balusin; ninthly, luomen; and tenthly, pauete. Please draw a line and write their English translations next to them. And please, if it's a second person verb, specify whether it's you singular or you plural. Although if you were translating a text, you would of course normally just write you and not specify whether it's singular or plural, but for the purposes of this grammatical exercise, it will be useful for you to specify to make sure you can recognise you singular versus you plural in terms of the person endings. Remember, if you're still finding it tricky, divide the verb into its stem. So in the case of baine, it's bain and its person ending. And you should be able to work out the meaning from there. Or with echomen, its stem, ech, and its person ending, omen. Please pause the video and have a go. Okay? I'm trusting that you've done this. I'm now going to reveal the answers. Firstly, baine means he, she, it goes, or he, she, it is going. Secondly, echomen means we have, or we hold, or we are holding. I should put the dots there to signify that there are other acceptable translations. Thirdly, trechusin means they run, or they are running. Fourthly, leges means you singular say, or you singular speak, or you singular are saying, or you singular are speaking. Fifthly, didaskor means I teach, or I am teaching. Sixthly, lambanete means you plural take, or you plural are taking. Seventhly, peres means you singular carry, or you singular are carrying. Eighthly, balusin means they throw, or they are throwing. Ninthly, luomen means we release, or we are releasing. And tenthly, pauete means you plural stop, or you plural are stopping. I hope that you got all of those, but if you didn't, please rewatch the video. Try and learn those endings. Try and learn that or is used for I, ace for you singular, a for he, she, it, omen for we, ete for you plural, and usin for they. In the present indicative active, 4 verbs ending in or in the first person singular. So every time you meet a new verb ending in or, divide it into the stem and the ending and memorize that verb stem. So say you come across the verb perro, you need to think, well, I know or is the person ending, so therefore the stem is per. And then you can fully conjugate perro in the present indicative active by sticking the different person endings onto its stem. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I plan on having lesson 9 out in a month's time at the most. Thank you once again, and I shall see you soon.